agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, Trustee Munson. Do we have a second?
I second.
Thank you, Trustee Marquez. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. A student board member? Sorry, I should have called for you first. I saw you say aye. Any opposed or abstaining? Seeing none, the agenda is approved unanimously. Thank you. Our next item, E, closed session action report. We do have one item to report. The board took action by a unanimous vote to approve the release of a temporary certificated employee. Other details are confidential, of course. Moving on to Area 5, we are delighted to celebrate the Boys and Girls Club Youth of the Year, Alina Cabrera Yarkin. Did I say that correctly? Hakeem? I believe you're here, yes? Come on up.
Alina, do you mind going to the podium? I'd like to, I'm in the process of sharing a document. I want to tell you a little bit about Alina's pretty amazing award. She was announced on Friday as the Boys and Girls Club Youth of the Year of all of Silicon Valley. Yes. She initially, during the semifinal round, she received a $1,000 recognition / award, but by winning the Silicon Valley one, she is now the recipient of $10,000. And now she goes on to the Northern California competition, and then the state competition, and then the nationwide competition. And when Alina wins the nationwide competition, she will win a full ride to the university of her choice. She'll have a brand new car. She, among many other things. And so I felt very lucky and privileged to have been in San Jose on Friday when they announced her as the winner. And so I wanted all of us to congratulate her. And Mamá, ¿puede venir por favor? Pásele. This is Yadira Jarquín, Alina's mom. And so we were sharing lots of tears. Estábamos compartiendo las lágrimas el viernes y compartí lo increíble que es su hija, y felicidades por parte de la mesa directiva, por parte de mí como superintendente. Felicidades. Thank you, everyone.
can hear you, but the folks at home can't.
I just want to say thank you so much for recognizing me, and to those who attended the gala and were interested in my story and were influenced by it. I'm just overall thankful for those who were just able to listen and understand where I was coming from. And I'm a girl who comes from a small town of Morgan Hill, and I'm glad to represent it.
And I know that Principal Diaz is here. So Lina, señora Edita, puede venir para enfrente para sacarnos una foto. We'd like to take a picture. And we have some flowers.
You have to work on our choreo.
Oh, wait a minute. No, go ahead. I just, no, I just excluded one of our trustees. Okay. Be within the inside. There we go.
Ready? 1, 2, 3. And then Veronica, would you do this, Veronica?
There you go. Now, there you go.
Right here so I can see a little bit better. And, oh my goodness. And then our two in the back. Can't see you guys very well. There's a lot of room. You can spread out a little bit better. There you go. Oh, this is perfect. No, where are you going? It's perfect. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
That would be great. How wonderful. Okay. Now we move on to San Martin Gwen Environmental Science Academy school site presentation with Principal Asen and the school staff.
Good evening, buenos noches. My name is Alex Asen. I am the principal at San Martin Gwen, and I have Kathy Moss, our assistant principal, with me tonight, and Claudia Sepulveda, our school site council president, and her two kids, Andrew in the back, and Ava as well. They've been through a few meetings. We had our school site council meeting earlier today, so they got to sit through that, and then now they're here with us to help share about our school. All right. Are we gonna have presentation of? Oh no. Yep. All right, Nancy, that's funny. Well, San Martin Gwen, I only have 10 minutes. So San Martin Gwen is, we are a dual language immersion school. So we teach Spanish and English, and we use the 90-10 model. I know our official title says Environmental Science Academy, but have been, over the last few years, shifting our overall program and focus to specifically focus on the dual immersion program. So for 90-10 models, we start in the TK and Kinder level with 90% of instruction in Spanish, 10% in English, and then we go up by 10% each grade level.
We're still trying to share
That's okay.
here.
No worries. I'll talk about DMA then. So DMA is our program name. The program started back in 2012, so just a few years ago. But DMA stands for Dual Immersion Multicultural Education. It's also Spanish, for tell me. So it's that's the name of our program. So eventually, once we fully phase out our English-only strand in the school, we will be looking into adjusting our official name from Environmental Science Academy. And not that we move away from Environmental Science Academy, we do still have a heavy focus on a garden and a / farm that we have on campus.
Just hold on 1 second.
No worries.
In theater, they call this vamping till ready.
Right. Well, the good news is I got through a little bit of the information on a couple of slides, so that's good. I'll speed it up.
To the right, top.
Slideshow.
Yeah, if we get, let's start on number 3. That's good, because I talked about those.
Who has their mouse over slideshow? just went away. We had it and then it was gone.
Oh, no, I've got the presentation. I just want to make sure everyone's able to see what I'm talking about. But that's, I can keep going if you want. So some highlights about our enrollment. If you're able to see on your computers, slide number 3, I believe this is. Some highlights about our student groups. We have about 40% of our students are English learners. 55% qualify for socioeconomically disadvantaged. And then 80% of our students are Hispanic. The fourth slide, you can look at, it's just some trends of our enrollment over the last 3 years. Back all the way to 21, 22. And then our next slide is an overview of our staff. We have a very large number of staff on campus, and Kathy is going to share some details about that.
Yeah, so we're really proud of our staff at San Martin Gwin. We have a wonderful staff. We have 81 total staff members, and you can see the different positions are listed up there, plus the 2 administrators. 65% of our entire staff is bilingual in English and Spanish. 19 of our staff members have master's degrees, and 13 of our staff members hold BCLAD or bilingual authorizations. BCLAD is the certification needed to teach in a dual immersion program.
All right. So our school plan for student achievement, the CIPSA, we have a number of goals. We're just going to highlight a couple of them this evening. So under our college and career readiness academic goals, goal 1 is a focus on the CASP test, the California Assessment of Student Performance and Progress. So our goal is to increase student performance by 10% each year by May 2025 this year. So the next slide will show you an overview of our dual immersion students, how they did per grade level in the 22-23 school year to the 23-24. So we have some areas of good amount of growth, and then some areas where there's not as much as we would prefer or that we are targeting. The next slide shows how our students in our program that is being phased out, the English only group. For this data, the last cohort was in 4th grade and is being phased out. There's 1 cohort of students per grade level up to 8th grade that are in the English only. That means they're not learning in the dual immersion program. And that's something we've been phasing out. Another area of academics that we are focusing on is our iReady tools. iReady is an assessment tool that we are able to use to gauge the growth of students over the school year. The data that we're going to look at tonight is including the baseline of August, September, and then the growth between that point and December. And so what we did is we targeted our CIPSA goals around growth of typical growth, how much a student is typically expected to grow in a school year on the iReady diagnostics from the beginning to the end, and then a stretch growth goal, which is really to try to target the achievement gap and push the kids forward to overcome their learning gaps that we need to focus on. So the next slide shows you how our goals are written. So this was really the first year when we've written iReady goals into our SIPSA. So we started off with a goal of 75% in math and English reading, and then for the typical annual growth, and then 50% for our annual stretch growth goal. 50% of our students meeting their goal for the year. All right, and then the next slide will give you some, it's a snapshot by grade level of what percentage of students, the first column there on the left, the highlighted one, that's the percentage of students that have already met their annual growth by December. And then the far right column that's highlighted is how many or what percentage of students per grade level have met their stretch growth goal for the year by December. So we still have time to push those up to 75% on the left side and 50% on the right side there. And then if you go on to the next one, it shows you by math. The prior one was reading, reading English. iReady does have a Spanish diagnostic tool that is going to be coming out next year. So we are looking forward to learning more about how that tool will be used. So far, we've been told it'll be very similar to the English iReady assessment tool. So that way we'll be able to track our Spanish as well using a similar tool. Next slide talks about some of the actions we're taking on those goals too.
All right, so as you can see up there, we are focusing a lot on our iReady lessons. So each student is given a specific path of lessons targeted to whatever weaknesses are uncovered through their diagnostic. And we're really focusing on completion of that, of lessons, a certain amount of lessons per week. In addition to that, we've worked hard to train our teachers in how to use all the various tools that iReady offers to provide targeted instruction in the areas that where the students need to grow. We also have some other ways that we've been supporting our students in increasing their growth on the iReady tools. And one of those, just to highlight, is we do have a former teacher who we are paying to come back several days a week, and she's working with our lower grade teachers to set up math centers and to train them in how to use them. And then she's also going to be actually working with the teachers in the classrooms to get them implemented. So we're really excited about that. Okay. All right. Another one of our SIPSA goals is around Spanish language. And this is focused on the CASP, the state testing that we take each year. There is a Spanish assessment that our dual immersion students are taking. Last year was the first year that all of our grade levels actually took that test. And so our goal is for our students students to be scoring, the average to be at least the same as the state average, or actually higher if possible. And so if you look at the next slide, you can see that at the top, you can see our average scores for the different grade levels, and then at the bottom, you can see the average scores for the state. So if you look at that bottom row where it says mean scale score, you can see, for example, our third grade students' mean score was 340, and the state average was 344. So we're pretty close there. Our fourth grade students actually exceeded the state average at 449, and the average was 444. And you can look across the board, and we're very close. We're very close, but of course, our goal is to be at that level and higher. And action, the different steps that we're taking to ensure that we meet this goal. We start with hiring very highly qualified staff members that in a dual immersion program, it's important to be looking at all times for staff that are going to be able to teach in this very specialized type of program. One way that we are able to get some amazing teachers is through the visiting teacher program. And so for the past 2 years, we've been able to hire teachers. It's a program with both the countries of Mexico and Spain. And so we've been able to hire teachers from Mexico and Spain over the past few years who've been really wonderful additions to our staff. We're also partnering with CABE, which is the California Association for Bilingual Education, to provide some very specialized training in dual immersion and all the latest research for our staff. We've done some training through SEAL and some other groups like that, but we're going to do some really targeted training for our entire staff starting this year and continuing on after that.
All right, if you could jump ahead, I think it's 2 slides. One more after that. Thank you. So another important goal social studies in Spanish. And so our only students are not able to keep to be in the classes. They have to be in a separate social studies and science class. And so when it comes to master scheduling, we have a small class size because some of the O cohorts only 20 kids. In a middle school, when it can go up to 36. So that creates a physical challenge, right? Because you can't mix the groups together all the time, and it makes it for a larger set of staff that are needed to meet all those students.
Will you be having, as you said, the marching this year?
Yes.
Okay, this information so we share with the entire board. I highly recommend it. Last year, unfortunately, it rained,
Yep.
but they did not stop the march. And so, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, we just met with Homeless Lab this morning to start planning it. We're looking for the week of, I think it was March 7th. I know it's a little earlier from Cesar Chavez Day at the end of the month, but there's a lot of other things on, so it's a good week to do it. So I'll send that info out this week.
I'll bring my umbrella and it's fine.
Yes. Well, you
Okay.
need it Thursday this week, but hopefully not. So
Okay, last call item. Sam, thank you very much.
thank you very much.
We'll now move on to item D, approval of minutes. We have minutes recorded from the regular board meeting January 14th. We have a motion to approve. Thank you, Clerk Arthur Gaddis. Do we have a second? Oh, I'm sorry. This is my bad ear. Sorry, trustee Munson, apologies. Okay, the motion by trustee Munson. How about a second? Okay, there we go. I'd begun. A second by trustee Northrup. Okay, student board member Faruqi, what says aye? All the trustees, you say aye? if you agree.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstaining? Okay, that passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We're now on item eight. Now on item public comment and communication. Public may address members of the board, may address the board. However, on the agenda, however, not discuss. You may not discuss rates. You choose not listed on the agenda. If it's not on the agenda, brought to the board's agenda, may be investigated by the administration and appropriate action or at a future meeting. Comments shall not exceed 3 minutes. And do we have some requests for public comment? We have somebody on Zoom. How long, how bad is the delay in the sound? Seconds?
About 3 minutes. So we can have a student board member present and then we can.
Okay, so we're working on, and yeah, so just, process wise, we provide for comment by Zoom to the degree technically possible. We will try and make sure that's possible, but that is not a requirement. If for some reason we're not able to do it, we'll either ask the person another time or send it in writing. But meanwhile, I'm going to close public comment for the moment. We will come.
Hello, I just got asked to unmute. Just FYI, my delay is really strong, so I'm so sorry. I'm here and my name's Royal Cruz. I'm a 4th grade teacher at Nordstrom. Let me start my video, sorry. I'm a 4th grade teacher at Nordstrom, and last time I was here at the board meeting, I spoke about how Nordstrom needed an assistant principal because our principal was so amazing and we didn't want her to burn out and leave our students and staff without support. And so today I'm here to talk about the same thing with our budget cuts coming. I think we all can agree that we don't want those cuts to come close to students. And for Nordstrom, cutting an assistant principal is cutting very close to students and to student needs. Nordstrom is the 4th largest school in Morgan Hill, and it's our largest elementary school by almost 200 kids. And we run the only TK through 5 inclusion program, which needs a lot of support. It's wonderful, but it's just a fact that we need a little bit more support with that. We also have almost 65 staff who need evaluations, which means, again, more support. But I don't think size alone warrants us having an assistant principal. It's because our assistant principal and our principal together are able to be a great team. You know that from our presentation last month that our initiatives at Nordstrom have been extremely effective with empowering our instructional leadership, helping teachers dive into more data-driven instructional conversations, having monthly intervention meetings. We've been able to catch kids earlier and help them, prevent them from going into a special education program before we had our student principal, we had about 14% of our Nordstrom students identify as special education, and now we're down to 9%. This is really big because it saves our district a lot of money. Every student we have who's identified as special education, we have to supplement a little bit extra money because our funding doesn't cover it from the federal government. So bring that. Okay, I'm being asked to unmute again. I'm just going to continue where I left off. I know we're all kind of trying to go with the flow with our technical issues. So I was just saying that Nordstrom bringing down our SPED student percentage to 9% is really big, and it should actually be higher than 14% because we have more inclusion students who are special education. So we're able with an AP to really support our students more and save our district money. In San Jose, just for like comparison, most schools over 400 students have assistant principals. Nordstrom is about 650 right now. Gilbert is the exception to that. They have
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I'm a teacher too. I have total speech anxiety. I have to.
It sound like you're petty.
Yeah, and then every time there's an event, yeah, there's an event or I have to
Yeah.
speak somewhere, I always double check the technology beforehand because I always have this fear that it's done. Yeah.
It's like,
And so I just read
yeah, no, I
slide.
read that. That's the one over there. I'm not really tired and the next day. It's just more.
Yeah.
It's like, I do.
I'm falling asleep.
I do pieces of it.
Yeah.
This is what I'm talking about. I'm like, this is what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Because it's in when they hear. It's not so. Oh, I see. I see. You get to breathe through.
I don't know. He like. I don't know, he managed to like in this.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the one. I'll let everybody know, my dog's.
Back down. Hope you enjoyed the chance to stretch.
You can hear me clap once. All right.
Yeah, yeah.
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 Okay, so, very good. All right, so we're going to go back to public comment. I believe we have one request for public comment on Zoom. Let's see if we can get that person up. Maybe we need to stop.
Hello.
this.
No, I've gotcha. Thank you. Can you guys hear me okay?
3 minutes.
Okay.
All right. Hello, I assume everyone can.
What's the name? Roya something?
Hi, can you guys hear me
So,
okay?
Roya Cruz on Zoom. Are we bringing Roya Cruz on Zoom up?
Can you hear me okay? I'm Roya Cruz. I'm on
Who
Zoom.
who invites her to unmute?
She's already.
Okay.
muted.
But we
Okay.
just don't hear her?
Gloria, you've unmuted. Can you begin talking, please?
Okay, thank you. Hi, I'm Roya Cruz. Thanks everyone for your patience. Last time I have spoke at the board meeting, the last time I was asking for Nordstrom to get an assistant principal. And I was asking because our current principal, Brianna Cole, is so amazing and does so much to support our students and staff. And we didn't want her to burn out and to leave our staff and students unsupported. And so with our budget cuts looming, I just wanted to make a request that our
See
assistant
wires being
principal.
plugged and unplugged
Uh-oh.
and keys being tapped.
Uh-oh, should I stop talking?
My understanding is that Ms. Cruz's comments are also potentially related to a later agenda item. So I'm going to keep the meeting moving because that's part of my job, and we will invite that comment again at a later point. So we will move on to the superintendent's report.
Okay, if Wes, if I can have you close out those windows. Thank you. Thank you, President Horner. Just a few highlights since our last board meeting on January 14th. I'm delighted to have visited schools in our district. We also had a very successful Rock the Mock at Central High School, at Live Oak High School, and at Sobrato High School. A huge thank you to our Chamber of Commerce for a decade, at least a decades-long partnership with the Rock the Mock. Also attended the DLAC meeting. The DLAC representatives received a wellness presentation, and it was fun to join our parents on some wellness activities. We also have district-wide parent roundtable meetings. It was noted earlier by the parent from SMG that SMG, if it offers parent meetings, they do it both in the evenings and in the mornings to accommodate parents. We do the same thing here in the school district as well with our roundtable meetings, and these are parent leaders from all of our schools, so school site council representatives, SEAC, special ed, our boosters, our ELACs, DLACs. So all parent leaders are invited. Home and School Club are invited to our parent roundtable meetings. Also, thank you to our team, our special ed team, for having provided a very successful transition fair at Britain. That should read AXA. I was in the planning committee to plan this year's AXA. Superintendent Symposium, and I also had the great fortune to serve on a panel to talk to about 530 superintendents in the state and to talk about education, among others. We also, President Horner and I had an opportunity to attend the Chamber of Commerce breakfast, where we also had the great fortune to hear from Mr. Guglielmo. He is a product, he's the son of Emilio, so it was lovely to hear the history of Emilio Guglielmo, and they're celebrating 100 years, and I would love a vintner pathway at Live Oak. There are other high schools that have a CTE pathway. Wouldn't it be wonderful for our students to just walk across the street? And so I reached out to him and see if he's interested. We obviously have not polled the students. We don't know whether that's of any interest, but it would be absolutely wonderful to partner with them. Also participated in Read Aloud at Charter School Morgan Hill. We will have our own Read Across America, and that will be March the 5th. So if for all members of the community who would love to come to speak to our students, we welcome you with open arms. Also had a PBIS Climate and Culture extended cabinet participated in this, and this is what all of our sites are doing to strengthen their climate and culture. Also, my husband and I had the fortune of sitting in on a panel for CALSA, California Association for Latino Superintendents and Administrators. The topic was Independent Leaders, Unified Purpose, Couples Redefining Education. And so that was fun. That was the first to sit on a panel with my husband. Lastly, these are some pictures I mentioned. We started the meeting with Alina. Here are some pictures. I want us all to zero in on that middle picture with Alina and Alban. Alban is a product of Morgan Hill Unified, and he then oversaw what used to be called the El Toro Center. It's now the Boys and Girls Club Center, and Alban has now received a pretty nice promotion. But what Alina shared as part of her application process, the impact the Boys and Girls Club has had on her life and on her sister's life. Her sister is a 7th grader at Britain. Alina is a senior at Live Oak. And Alban shone light. an incredibly powerful looming presence in her life. And Alina has said this publicly. She is a product of a single family, a single parent family, and Alban served as that positive male role model. It's just a powerful story. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Garcia. Now we will move on to item I3, employee group reports. Understand the Morgan Hill Classified Employees Association does not have a report this week, so we will move to Mr. Jim Levis, President of the Morgan Hill Federation of Teachers. Welcome, Mr. Levis.
Thank you. Thank you. Good evening, President Horner, Board Trustees, Superintendent Garcia, staff, and guests. I'm Jim Levis, the proud president of the Morgan Hill Federation of Teachers. I wanted to thank San Martin Gwin for their presentation. They have all left, but it was really nice to hear the things that are going on there, and they've really done a lot with the getting the DMA program certainly established here in Morgan Hill. This is, of course, as most of the year is a busy time of the year for educators in the district. Elementary campuses are buzzing with, of course, all things assessments. Yes, that's right. Elementary classroom teachers are busy giving assessments as the district's second trimester assessment window is now open, and the next round of report cards are due in just a few weeks. Elementary specialty educators are busy working with students and collaborating with their colleagues in order to provide progress updates on students' goals. It is also LPAC testing time, so all educators at the sites are working together to support the execution of this, which requires adjustments in rosters and routines. Add in the excitement of Valentine's Day on this Friday, and of course, you've got formula for the need for everyone to be flexible. As always, the elementary educators of our district do what is necessary to support their teachers, their staffs, and of course, the district. Secondary teachers are approaching the end of the third quarter and are continuing to collaborate in PLTs to deliver common formative and summative assessments, review data, encourage student successes, and ensure that all learners are supported in the classroom. Additionally, they are administering iReady tests, as we saw a little earlier today, as well as preparing to administer the CASP, which is, of course, the state test. This also means working together as a whole staff to adjust their schedules, calendars, and routines as well. Students are also busy registering for next year's classes, and our certificated staff have been hard at work with course recommendations and supporting students as they make and execute their middle and high school plans. The college application and scholarship season is also wrapping up, and many of our certificated staff have also used their own time to write thoughtful letters of recommendation to assist students in this process. To conclude, in continuing with the communication plan from MHFT, this year, we have shared a Google Sheets presentation with the board this morning, focusing on family engagement. And again, we encourage you to take the opportunity to look over those things that members have as considered to be important successes and challenges as we continue to work closely with our families. Thank you very much.
Thank you, President Levis. I know I always read those through those presentations and find them very helpful and useful. So thank you and the team for doing that.
Thank you. We appreciate that.
Okay, for the Morgan Hill Educational Leaders Association, Julie Aguirre Jacinto will be guest starring tonight.
Good evening. In response to our technical difficulties, I will be presenting on behalf of President Buchser.
Thank you for pivoting so well.
I am Julia Aguirre Jacinto, and I am the Secretary of MHELA. Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. The principals are continuing to analyze data and work on their school plans. They're going to start developing the new school plans soon. Principals are having data chats with the superintendent and the educational services team to reflect on their most recent data from the mid-year assessments. Staff are working hard to focus on teaching and learning while increasing student engagement and the rigor of instruction. And as Mr. Levis mentioned, we are in the middle of LPAC testing for our students who are identified as English learners. A special thank you to our facilities director, Ricky Carrillo, for all of his hard work to ensure that our schools are operating and functioning to support our community. He shared an update for this evening. We are continuing to replace filters in our HVAC systems. We are continuing to clean gutters and prepare for inclement weather. We are preparing the fields for baseball and softball at the high schools. The bond department is on the final end of a new fire system at Live Oak High School. We are relocating the girls softball field at Live Oak to upgrade to Title IX requirements and keeping up with the daily facilities, grounds maintenance, and upkeeping for smooth operating campuses. We are thankful for all of our department's efforts to support the schools and communities. Thank you again for the opportunity to present tonight.
Well done. Thank you very much. Okay, board members, any activities related to your representation you'd like to report on? Somebody going first? Okay, trustee Altman. Sorry. Everyone will get a chance.
We had a NEST meeting, which is navigating, educational special ed. It used to be SEAC, but it was pretty nice. There were several parents were there. There was a presentation on transitions and discussion and promoting the, at the time, upcoming transition fair at Britain. So it's really nice to see that organization getting going.
Thank you. Anything else? Yes, trustee Gardner. Then I'll turn my head right.
Thank you, President Horner. So the last board meeting, the positive prevention plus curriculum got passed. But we did have 7 parents, grandparents who came and spoke, lifting their voices with concerns. I'm continuing to hear from them and communicate. So I just want to make sure that I'm provided, and we also provide for the parents the appendixes that were missing from the binder with the curriculum that was sitting out in the lobby. So we did not get the full curriculum for review. The appendixes were missing, and then nobody, to my knowledge, I didn't see them, the videos. So can Superintendent Garcia or somebody else speak to when and how we get follow-up on that? Oh, and then one other thing, I do want to also see the curriculum for the positive prevention plus curriculum 7th grade as well.
Okay, since we haven't agendized this, we can't really, I understand the concern. And I would suggest that the superintendent perhaps, and you get together, have a detailed meeting on this. We can't talk about it right now just because we don't have it agendized right now.
Okay, well, again, it was from my constituents, so I am
Yeah,
following.
no,
It's a board report. Yeah.
Yeah,
But-
I understand. I'm
Okay.
not trying to shut you down, just trying to keep on the right side of the law.
Okay.
So we ask the Dr.
I will follow up with
Yeah.
Superintendent Garcia.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Who's next down here? Trustee Marquez.
I just want to share that I attended the ladies' tea at Los Paseos. They always put together a really nice tea for the mothers and the students. But one thing that I noticed when I was walking up, one of the little boys had asked the teacher, "Are boys allowed?" And they said, "Absolutely." And it was so cute. And, there's all the students there. They get so excited, to be there with their moms or guardians or grandparents. And that's what I was doing there, is attending with my granddaughters. So it's always something to look forward to. It's always done really well by the parents and the homeschool club. So I congratulate them. I also attended the Arts and Crafts Youth Workshop. It was sponsored by the Living Above the Influence, Chill Out and Influence, Inspire, Empower, and DFCS, Department of Family and Children's Services. The busy buzzy bots, students, yeah, it's tongue twister. Yeah. They were there. The students were the ones that taught the kids, the attendees, including myself, to do an activity for Valentine's Day. They were so patient, and the students were so helpful, and I learned something. So I thought it was wonderful. So if you have an opportunity to go and attend one of these activities that's sponsored by these kids, I would highly recommend it. I took my granddaughter, and she said, "This was so fun. I want to do more." And I brought what we made. They taught us how to make this, and it lights up. A little rose bouquet. So congratulations to the organization that put this together and the students that taught it. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. We'll have to add show and tell to the agenda. I'll have a show and tell. That's wonderful. It's beautiful. Anyone else? Vice President Rade, please.
I attended Charter School Morgan Hill, the World Read Aloud Day. I read side by side to a combined class of 5th and 6th graders. So that was fun to do. It's always good to see the excitement of kids, right? It's like if you're having a bad day, just surround yourself with some kids. I also attended I toured a workforce housing facility in Daly City put on by Jefferson Unified School District. They're a district that was facing declining enrollment. And so they recently completed a project in 2022. And it was 122 apartments for rent for classified and certificated. So that was really interesting, and seeing what they're doing with land, district-owned land that they no longer use. And I'm participating in the School Board Partners Collaborative, salud, cohort number 7. So I'm working with 75 or 74 other board members across the country. And it's really interesting to just get together on webinars and hear that we're all in this together. We're all kind of facing the same situations. Some districts are more dire than others, but that is, so that's it. So yeah, collaboration is really great. I'm learning a lot from the partnership. So that's it.
Wonderful. Thank you. Anyone else? No? Yeah, Trustee Munson?
Well, I also attended the Read Across, I think it was Read Across America at the Charter School of Morgan Hill, and it was really nice. And since being a teacher, it was nice to be there with the 5th and 6th graders, and it made me miss my time of teaching in 5th and 6th or 6th grade, really. That conversation, because kinders, they don't have that deep conversation, but it was a great way to give back and just see what's happening across the district. I know that they're, the charter, but it was pretty amazing. They did a good job.
Very good. Trustee Northrop, Clerk Northrop Gaddis, your proper title. Thank you.
Thank you. I went to the Britain Open House. It was scheduled right after the 6th grade orientation, and I do have an incoming 6th grader.
Oh, wonderful.
There was a really great turnout. It was, there were a lot of incoming families, and it was really awesome. It's such a beautiful campus. The classrooms that were open had really cool projects. The band was playing. It was super fun. So they did a really great job. And it was a really great way. Having the orientation scheduled before the open house, I thought was really effective.
Wonderful. Thank you. Very good. Okay, I'll report on some of my activities over the last month. I joined a vice president visiting the employee housing project. Mr. Chang and some other staff were there as well. That was really, really fascinating how they approached that, and made a significant difference in employee turnover, which was their intention, and it worked. They happened to be a school district that is the lowest revenue per student and therefore lowest paying of all of its neighboring districts. And so it's wonderful to see what they've been able to accomplish. It's complicated, but doable. So that was very inspiring. Another school I had a chance to visit just yesterday was Eastside Union School District in East San Jose, a large high school district. I was there as part of the County School Board Association Hoffman Awards Verification Committee. So they had applied for and got a preliminary win for the work they have done on providing internet to students and their families in their homes. And they over the last 7 years have gone big on that. They have placed specialty kind of long distance Wi-Fi in cooperation with the city and PG&E on phone poles all around their service area, such that at least 75% of their students and students' families are able to stay on the school internet from their home, but without needing anything other than, their regular Chromebook or laptop or whatnot in their house. And they've done this without increasing their IT staff, which is, but they actually, own and operate and manage it. So that was quite, please come to the Hoffman. There will be a whole video made about it and to share. And their head of technology happens to have been a teacher who then worked at Apple for a while and then came back to help schools. Very dynamic fellow who knows the technology and knows how to find money and get things done. So very, very special skill set, but it was fascinating to be there. And I asked him, I said, so do you ever help a friend? He said, well, I live in San Juan Bautista. I drive through Morgan Hills, so I could maybe stop and say hi one day. So maybe we can at least pick his brain at some point. So that was a fascinating thing to get to do. Also, through the Legislative Action Committee of the county, we've started our regular visits with people. For the first time this year, we met with the Superintendent's Council for the county to find areas of common interest around advocacy. And so that's going to turn into another body of work. We've also had meetings with State Senator Cortese, Supervisors Otto Lee and Betty Duong. And those are ones I was in. There's others going on, but this is part of a long-term cycle. There's a legislative brunch coming up here. All the trustees should have received invitations. Please go. It's really interesting hearing from people at the county, state, and federal level on, how they're responding. And because what they do or don't do and what they decide has a massive impact on those of us that then get to, implement it at this level and then all the way to the classroom and the playground and the bus terminal and everywhere else. So that's important. And also in similar vein, I attended the Capitol Advisors. So they're out of the Sacramento Capitol, their budget workshop. I mean, and I know our staff is far more versed on this than I will ever hope to be, but I try and stay up with it. But at least as of the January budget from the governor, it's somewhat optimistic, but we shall see. I mean, every day I start and read the news and go, what's happening now? And what does that mean? So we'll find out. But so far things are looking a little better in terms of the budget picture for this coming school year than we had anticipated. Moving along, the Morgan Hill Education Foundation, we had a meeting. We're fortunate to welcome our newest member, Sarah Northrop Gaddis, and the current focus there is really growing out the community board member portion of that. It's pretty heavy on current and former school board members right now, and we know that for its durability over the decades, this needs to be a community effort. So that's where our intention and effort is focused there right now. School events, I also got to go to the transition fair. I had never been to that event before. That's amazing. This is a presentation of resources for our students that have been in various special education programs and are growing up and moving on. But also one of the tables I talked to, there's a nonprofit I didn't even know existed that does amazing work providing homes that then are lived in by 4 to 6, young adults. Kind of a roommate sort of a situation. And they just have a wonderful way of for young people that are moving into that have, always been at home and had that support at home. Maybe they come for a day, a week for a while to the transition. But for people in this kind of circumstance, you need to have a plan forever, because right, mom and dad can't take care of you forever. That's just not how life goes. So that was one of the many resources there, and I'm really proud of our district for putting that together and offering these opportunities. Whew, there's been a lot this last month. Sorry. So I got to go to all 3 Rock the Mocks. This is now, I had to go back and look. 2012 was when we did our first one, this interview and related skills training for high school students. So we've done it for 12 years, but I think we missed 3. So I think we've had 9 rounds, but because there were a few years when nobody was allowed to get together and shake hands. But really just incredible to see that carry on. And it turned out at one of them, while waiting for everything was under control, I was just hanging out in front of the Live Oak Theater there, and our longtime CT instructor, CJ Gallart, said, "Hey, I want to tell you some things, and then please share it." So I'm sharing CJ's report. But so he teaches the cabinet and construction series of classes there, and also leads. He's kind of the lead teacher for CT on that campus. I may have the wrong term. If I use the wrong term, I hope I got it close. But they applied for, as part of a consortium led by Milpitas Unified, a construction grant for building saleable tiny homes. So not just like building something sort of, but actually, so there's a company that a tiny home is just a fancy trailer that you can live in. It's a new name for a really great RV, in my opinion, but marketing, they call them tiny homes now. But anyhow, so there's a company that makes the trailer base that has the full Department of Transportation approvals and all that. So you can put tires and a license plate on it and call it, a vehicle, and then has all of the detailed plans for building like a small studio home on this. And so the students will be designing and building this, and they have 3 years of grants to do all this for 3 years. And the idea is that then they'll be building stuff that's commercial quality and saleable, and can then, sell it off or auction it off or do something to generate cash to make the program sustainable long-term. I said, great, why don't you come to the board and say this? They said, no, you just tell them for me. So that's that, but that's really wonderful. And he also wanted to, shout out to our retired but keeps coming back on special projects, Glenn Webb, for his particular efforts in helping get that paperwork done and get it done. So he was very excited. And anybody know, I've been an advocate for, career education shop, whatever, for 20 years, way before I even thought of running for anything. So this is a lifelong passion of mine. I'm really glad we're moving forward. And then I'll just close with, got to go to Britain once for the honor assemblies. The most fun thing to do, trustees, if at all possible, find a way to go there and just congratulate these kids. I know it happens during the day and people have jobs and lives. It's not easy, but it's just such a thrill and a privilege. And what I know from the staff and others there, us showing up as much as possible really makes a difference. Just the symbolism of showing up and saying, thank you, well done, really matters. I'm glad I got to do that. And then that same evening, my umbrella and I went also to the open house. It was a dark and stormy night, but still amazing. And one of the classrooms I happened to stop in there and hear from a teacher on is doing special education, particularly around English language acquisition. And she was telling me how she has integrated her work with the curriculum taught in the standard English classes and doing it. I'm not expert at this, but everything she said made great sense to me as a really thoughtful and intentional way of doing that work, and seemed, genuinely, knowledgeable, enthused, and excited to be working with these kids. So it's always lovely to, have an experience like that. It's like, wow, that is amazing. So I wanted to report that. Oh, okay, that's it. Now back to running the meeting instead of giving my report. Any other, I think we've covered board reports, student board report. Back to the agenda here. Okay. Item I5 is a calendar of upcoming events. The events are attached to the agenda for review. We will not be reading them out. Moving on to item J, we have a number of consent items. Do we have any trustees wishing to pull one or more items from the consent calendar? Seeing none, do we have a motion to approve the consent items? Okay, thank you, Vice President Andrade, for moving to approve. Do we have a second? I think Clerk Northrop Gaddis, thank you very much. Student Board Member Faruqi, how do you vote? Aye, thank you. Other trustees, please say aye if you agree.
Aye.
Aye. So that's 6 ayes, and we have a temporary absence by Trustee Gardner. So please note that in the minutes. Okay, now we can jump through a bunch of pages. I believe we are on K1. Do I have that correct, Superintendent? Okay, mid-year LCAP report. Assistant Superintendent Jimenez and team will present.
We're going to do a little something different. This is for the benefit of those on Zoom.
Since our camera's in a different place, is that the camera now?
Yeah, it's just not facing on a really great place for people that are talking.
Perfect. Oh, that's wonderful. Now everyone can see you, and instead of when for a long time I sat right on the other side of that post and could never see. So this is better. Thank you for the new and improved layout.
I appreciate it, right? So it's great to have part of the team. So thank you so much, trustees. Tonight, we bring before you information items about the lovely call, the mid-year LCAP report. So I'm going to have Claudia, please go to our next slide and give you a little background on the statute that says this is a requirement for us to be able to present information to trustees. So the Senate bill, right, 114 basically says that part of the requirement of that process for developing an LCAP, that's the local control accountability plan, and the budget overview for parents, leveling known in our world as the BOP right? Because we love acronyms, is that one of those requirements is that we have present to the Board of Trustees a mid-year update of where we are with the implementation of the LCAP for this school year. And so that is our presentation for tonight. In your agenda packet, you have a full copy of the report. And if you printed it out, it looks like this. So it's quite a lot. So we're doing our best tonight to give you a very nice overview of each of those goals. We'll talk a little bit. We have our wonderful ESD team and our wonderful business service team that will walk through some slides. I'm just going to say right now, we were very deliberate, I think, as an organization about highlighting the places where we needed to do work, great work for students, right? In each of these areas. And so I'm very proud of the LCAP and very proud of that report. But for tonight's purposes, because we don't have 5 hours, we're just going to give you some highlights, right? Once we present this tonight, it will be posted on our LCAP page on our website so that the whole public can look at it. And we will also forward it to our county Office of Education. That's a little bit about the background to know why we're here tonight. Next slide, please. So that's really what I summarized. Next slide, please. All right, so I'm going to turn it over right now to Doris Lopez, who is our Director of Business Services, who's going to talk a little bit about what's in the BOP, which is also attached in your agenda. And what you have here is just a little tiny synopsis.
Good evening, everybody. Yes, so this was taken from the adopted budget back in June, and nothing has changed. The revenue remains the same. This document is part of the LCAP budget overview that was presented to the parents, and everything remains current. No changes.
All right. Thank you, Doris. We really appreciate it. As part of the LCAP process, in addition to the actual report that has the goals and the metrics and all those wonderful actions and reporting on the actions, the budget overview for parents, which is attached to your agenda and it also lives live on our district website and the LCAP page, provides the parents a summary, and I'm going to say that in quotes, right, because it's about 5 pages, a short summary of the revenues and expenditures in the district overall. Next slide, please. So a bit for those folks who are joining us on Zoom or who are not familiar with the mid-year LCAP report, is that the mid-year LCAP report kind of looks like a baby LCAP, for a lack of a better word, right? You have the very goal on the very top of that page if you were looking at that report. You have all the metrics that our team and the phenomenal Crystal Alvarez, big shout out to her, worked a lot on those metrics. Those metrics are updated as what we know for the middle of the year. So this is a slide that kind of walks you through how to read that report. So there are some metrics that we have that are currently unknown. So for example, we have metrics, we measure how our students do on state assessment, but that assessment doesn't occur until May, right? So it's going to say we're waiting until the end of the year to be able to put that information. There are metrics that are in process. So we have some metrics, for example, the iReady diagnostics, right? We did one in the fall, we did one in winter, and we have one coming up that are in progress. And then we have some other metrics that we already know, right? Because we completed a survey, for example, and we're able to put that information out there. So that's what the mid-year update is all about. We give what is currently up to December 31st, what we know about those metrics, and then we update all that information again when the Ed Services Department and our Business Services Department work together to complete the annual LCAP update. So when we come to you again in June to present the 25-26 LCAP, you're going to have that LCAP, the budget overview for parents, and a new annual update that will have all those metrics that currently says unknown on the mid-year completed, right? So it's where we are at the moment. It's kind of like a little milestone marker, right? I'm going to go to the next slide. So that's a little bit about the metrics, and I'm going to turn it over to Doris, who's going to talk to you a little bit about what's in the report in the columns that talk about implementation and expenditures.
So the implementation, as you can see, is a work in progress. We do have several buckets. Some of them not implemented, some are planned, partially implemented, and fully implemented. The expenditures, as Dr. Jimenez said, they are up to December end of month. And keeping in mind that a lot of these are still, we're at half of the semester right now, and we will be presenting finalized expenditures at the end of June.
Right. So we've got some metrics to look at for mid-year update, and then the expenditures and implementation. It just depends on the goal, right, and the action of where we are in that process. All right, so we're going to turn to the next page and we're going to give you some highlights of what's in the report. So our first LCAP goal is about all things academics, preparing students for college and career and civic life through that equitable, high quality, inclusive education. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Julie Jacinto, who's going to walk you through the slides that have to do with goal 1.
All right, next slide, please. So goal 1 is our overarching encompassing goal, and it has 5 focus goals within it. The first one focuses on elementary academics in our elementary schools. The second one focuses on middle school. The third one focuses on high school. And then we have 2 student groups that we're really intentionally focusing on. So the fourth focus goal focuses on our students identified as English learners. And our 5th focus goal is to support diverse student learners and to make sure that they are being supported in the least restrictive environment. Next slide, please. So as you can imagine, under those 4 goals, we have quite a lot of metrics and actions. So this is just a select sampling of the metrics from the comprehensive report that you can access as the attachment. So on this page, on this slide, we see a sampling of metrics from high school, specifically looking at high school graduation rates, CTE completers, A through G requirements, and enrollment in specific coursework. And it is still in progress because the year has not yet completed. But you can take a look at our baseline data from 23-24, where we would like to go by the end of the year and where we are as of December 31st. Next slide, please. On this slide, we have some additional high school metrics from Goal 1. 9th graders passing IM1 with a C or better, and students with disabilities, college and career readiness indicator. So that metric is specifically aligned with our focus on students with learning differences. Next slide, please. Now we start getting into some of our more encompassing goals across the grade span. So the first action title here is around the development of a comprehensive literacy plan. So we are focusing on aligning our instructional practices and work across our system. And you can see the budgeted expenditure, how much has been spent to date, and then what meetings were held prior to December. Those meetings are continuing during this half of the year, so it is an ongoing implementation. And then the second one listed there is teacher professional development. What's specifically called out is the August and October PDs. Those are our big lift days in terms of all teachers in the district receive professional development on those days. We also have a new teacher orientation listed, and that is for all of the teachers who are new to our district, which may include new to the profession or just new to the district. And then, next slide, please. We have a few more sampling of actions from LCAP Goal 1. So 1.1b, so the 1.1 is referring to elementary schools and talks about our reading intervention teachers. And right now, it's fully implemented. All 8 schools have a reading intervention teacher. They're fully staffed. And the second one there, 1.1g, is also an elementary goal or action, excuse me. And it refers to TK5 mathematics. And the note on the side there talks about the ongoing implementation. So we are partnering with the P3 Coherence collaboration with California Educational Partners. And we have 2 schools that are focusing on the effective implementation of instructional strategies in mathematics for students in TK through 3rd grade, and doing a really deep dive on what does it mean to have open tasks and active engagement for our students. And so that is the elementary action there. And I will turn it over to Dr. Jimenez.
Yes. Thank you, Julie. We really appreciate it. Well, my friends, I am not Corina Sapien, our wonderful director of family and community engagement. She is engaged in a family matter and really wanted to be here tonight because she really, is such a phenomenal leader in this goal. So goal 2, as you can tell, I won't read you the whole synopsis, but it really is about state priority, which is a way that we have to outline our LCAP with those dollars, right? Those LCFF supplemental dollars has to have a component with family and community engagement. So this is the focus of our LCAP goal 2, which is about creating that culture of it that are inclusive for all of our families. I loved what Trustee Andrade said today, so that families can show up as their authentic selves at our campuses and feel welcome, right? And so what we have for you tonight is kind of like a highlight of that goal 2, which our wonderful Corina Sapien, our director, oversees. Can you go to the next slide, please? So a little bit about the metrics, right? This is like, how do you know? It's almost like that question from our PLT, like, how will you know if people have learned it, right? How will you know, like, how are you going to measure the effectiveness of this goal, right? So some of the metrics that we've included in goal 2 are related to community liaisons. So every one of our sites has a community liaison that is funded with LCFF supplemental dollars. And so they have a desired outcome of having a certain number of visits, home visits a week. It's also one of the items that's highlighted in the family and community engagement plan, which is about that inclusivity and building those strong family homeschool connections, right? And you can see the mid-year update there. And so it's in progress because obviously we're not at the end of the school year. So on the annual LCAP, you're going to have the full metric. Another one that's on there as well is that we want to make sure that our staff, in addition to working at our sites and providing that wonderful family and community engagement support, they're also getting the professional development that they need. And so we have some goals related to the professional development for our community liaisons that play an integral part at all of our school sites as well. So you can see the metrics there of at least 11 of the 13 community liaisons have participated in professional development. That's what PD stands for, activity this year, and 8 of those have participated in at least 2. So they keep a log of what they're doing, and so there's an accountability piece. Are we meeting that metric, and how well are we not just hiring people, but make sure that they have the tools necessary to help us build those strong school and family connections. Next slide, please. So there's a little bit of the metrics, and now we're going to go into the actions. So obviously, one of the things that is important for us is those bilingual community liaisons. And so you can see that action is fully implemented because each of our sites has a community. We are fully staffed community liaison. And then one of the other goals that we have in goal 2 is related to supporting our District English Learner Advisory Committee, that's DLAC, our migrant council that we have as well. And so those advisory groups play a really important role in the development of this particular goal for strong family and community engagement. And so that you can see from the implementation note that we have spent just $415 out of the $3,000 that we allocated. But again, some of those things are still in the works, right? And some of that planning and resources for this part of I came from secondary for the second semester. And so I'm going to ask for the next slide. And I'm going to turn it over to our wonderful director, Jessie Swift, who will be talking a little bit about goal 3.
Good evening, everyone. I'm really glad they moved the podium. I was a little nervous there for a second. Just kidding. I'm talking about goal 3. So when we think about goal 3, it's I like to say it's the heart of students. So with goal 3, it's enhancing student engagement, social emotional learning, and school climate. Next slide, please. And under goal 3, we have the focus goal around attending social emotional learning and development. I am not going to read all that, so don't worry. Essentially what it is it's talking about our wellness centers and our wellness support staff and therapists that do the amazing work that work with our children in the wellness spaces and wellness centers. Next slide, please. So in goal 3, we have a lot of different metrics that we measure. We're very fortunate that a lot of these are very easy to measure, not easy to obtain, but easy to measure. And so one of them, as we highlighted in a couple of different places, is our attendance rate. And so we are slowly increasing our attendance rate, either through decreasing chronic absenteeism or just increasing our overall attendance for students coming to school. When kids love school, they love coming. And so we want to continue to increase that. We also have a measurement for our number of home visits done by our care staff. So our care team is exceptional when they work with our students, with students that are experiencing homelessness and are at-risk students. They go and visit homes. I think meeting our students where they're at is really essential. And so sometimes that means
meeting them in their place where they live or in the in areas that they feel comfortable in. And if school isn't one of them, then we're going to try and really reach out their hands and help meet them where they're at. And so home visits is really important for us. Also, the research shows that home visits create an opportunity for us to build an even stronger relationship and bond with our families. And so that has been a goal for the care team to really increase the number of home visits that they're doing with our community. So if you see them knocking on your door, they're there to help. So welcome them in. Another one is our number of community events and outreach. We really, again, are trying to meet our families where they are. And so how do we do that? We go out to them. And so through the different events, for example, your event with the cards and Hearts and Cards was sponsored through Lati, but we partner with them. That's through our youth programs grant. And so that was in partnership with us. And so that's an event that we sponsor and put on. So that's one of our outreach events that we put on. So I'm glad you enjoyed it. It was great. It was a lot of fun putting together, and seeing those kids actually run it is amazing. So our outreach events is part of that measurement, is how many events are we doing to be out in our community and not asking our families necessarily to come to us, but how are we going out to them and meeting them where they are. Next slide, please. We also look at the number of students that are referred to outside agencies and community partners through our multi-tiered systems of support, or MTSS. We have students that might need a higher level of care. And so how do we help support them? By referring to our outside agencies, whether that's Rebecca's Community Services, Lati, Living Above the Influence, Community Solutions, Youth Alliance. We have a variety of different CBOs that help in different ways. And so we want to measure how many students are getting referred to outside agency. That also helps us measure where the need is and how do we increase the services depending on the supports that are needed in our community. We measure the number of visits to our wellness spaces during non-class time. So during before school, brunch, and after school. And so it's important for us to track how often our students are visiting our wellness centers. So we know that our students need the wellness center in time to cool down, to build relationships with our teams, to just have a space where they feel that they're comfortable and safe. And so we do measure it's over 20,000 visits during non-class time to our wellness spaces in Morgan Hill Unified. Next slide. So this is our some of our items in actions, and so one of the ways we also support students is through our School Link service partnerships. We have 2 School Link service coordinators currently, and their role is to really help connect families. We like to talk to them as the bridge between families and schools, and so they really help provide that linkage of different supports, whether it's through PEI, Prevention Early Intervention, or School Link Services, SLS, or to other CBO partners or other just services that they might need. They also are responsible for our food distributions. They do that twice a month. So just resources in our community. They provide that support and connection to all sorts of different things in our community. We also work on our attendance. That has been a huge focus, as all of the people that have come up here in some capacity talked about attendance being the focal point, whether it's helping kids get to school so that we can reach them academically, helping kids get to school so we can help support them social-emotionally, or we can help have them in school because that's directly associated to our funding. Attendance is a huge component of the work that we do. If kids aren't in school, we can't reach them, right? It's really hard to have supports for them in school. It's really hard for the teachers to build connections, peer connections, all of those things. It starts with kids in school. And so how do we get them here, and how do we create environments for them to be here? And so that's a huge action item. And we've created a variety of different things, whether it's through our Minion Reasons to Come to School attendance activities, it's working on our Saturday academies to recoup attendance, or it's through our attendance truancy processes to create systems of support for kids that aren't coming to school. And so we've really tried to create a robust system to help support attendance in our district. Next slide. And then this is part of the 3.1 focus goal. This is our wellness counselors. And so they have really worked hard to build a really structured tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 MTSS structure within wellness. And so if you look at those numbers, we have, they've done over 1,000 personal counseling sessions with students. 603 students, have participated in group counseling. We've created over 23 safety plans. So you can see that the need in all levels of all the different tiers is necessary librarian is being supported by our wellness team. And so just a couple of things to help highlight the work that's happening to help support the heart of kids. Thank you.
And I think that wraps up our presentation of that kind of highlight view of the mid-year LCAP report. We just want to take the opportunity to highlight and acknowledge the sincere work of all of our dedicated staff, day in, day out, day in and day out, our wonderful teaching staff and everybody else who provides supports for students, whether they are like focusing on the academic, whether they're focusing overall or wellness. That work is done in a team. Success is a team sport, and we really believe that here in Morgan Hill. So with that, I will take any questions that the trustees may have.
Wonderful. Thank you, Assistant Superintendent Meadows. This is not an action item, it's an information item, but this is an opportunity for questions or comments. Anyone? Okay, Vice President Andrade, please.
I have a question regarding slide number 10, LCAP Goal 1, sampling of metrics. The goal is integrated, ninth graders passing integrated 1 with the grade C or better. Currently, we are at 65% passage rate. If the goal is 85, and I know we're up 3%, is the issue lack of completion of homework? Is it the textbook? Is it like?
I think it's a couple of factors, and it could be I'm not sure it's the curriculum part, although there's a lot of discussions, and particularly in our secondary curriculum council, as the adoption. I think that's been brought up a couple of times here, and we're waiting for a new list from a published list from the California Department of Education. I think that there are a variety of factors for some students, right? They may have interrupted schooling, right? Maybe for some of our students, math is not their strong point. So what I can tell you for sure is that we have a great group of educators, both at the district and your site administrators who are looking at that data, right? And thinking of the ways that they're providing additional support for students. It's why it's highlighted there, because we know that integrated Math 1 is a gatekeeper to the hard sciences and the mathematics. And so I think we have a whole cadre of people right now focusing, on mathematics and ensuring that kids can pass that first course.
Is that the book that was heavily rich in word? Yeah.
I think for most books that are related to integrated Math 1 and general mathematics, it's kind of text heavy. And that's because the framework puts a lot of onus, right, in understanding not just what an algorithm does, but that conceptual understanding that is focused on language. So we have a lot of group of people working on how do we break that down in a way that children can understand and access it, right? That's a lot of our conversation, and a lot of the work that I know that you are seeing maybe through some of our contracts with the Silicon Math Valley Initiative, some of the work that you've seen, with that Julie mentioned, right? We're starting P3, that's with preschool through 3rd grade. We need to start getting kids early to understand those conceptual understandings. So we are working on that problem in multiple fronts. You're welcome.
Any others? Okay, seeing none, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Appreciate it. We'll now move to our next item, the Measure G Bond Citizens Oversight Committee 2023-2024 Annual Report. Assistant Superintendent Chang Tob will introduce this item along with the Citizens Oversight Committee Chair Kathy Chavez-Napoli. Yeah?
Thank you, Board President. This is my honor to welcome and introduce Ms. Kathy Napoli, who's the current chair of the Citizens Oversight Committee, and also Mr. Joe Andretti, our bonds director, who will be providing a presentation on the annual report. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good evening. I have the fun part of a lot of the work that the staff does because we get to talk about projects that are done. So most of you know that this bond was passed in 2012 for 198 million, a little bit over that, to either repair, replace, or create new classrooms and facilities for our school district, which were in tremendous need. I want to give you kind of a little context of why I think it's so important. My husband and I had our first date at the old Live Oak Gym, what is now known as Britain. And that was in 1970. And to see a lot of these facilities get improved because of this bond really makes a difference. And it makes a difference not just for my generation, but for every generation, because every student and the staff deserve to have a good learning environment. And so if you've seen Britain and you've gotten the pleasure of going to that new library and resource center at the corner where it changes colors, people are so proud, students are so proud to be a part of it. But that also goes forward with Nordstrom and all the other schools. And so I get to say that we are making great progress on the Measure G bond monies. Series A is already 100% complete. Series B is almost complete. And Series C is 58% complete. So we're talking about 55 million, 80 million, and 63 million plus. And then we have this other agreement, which I just love. I don't know if you know about it, but we have the OPSC, which is where the state has their bond. And then if our schools are eligible, we get reimbursed for up to 60% for modernizing. And we get 50% if we are creating or building new projects. That's like getting double the money. So when we have our $198 million and then the state has whatever they pass, we really are able to extend that money, make it last and improve. But kind of the sad part is that we still have so many unmet needs. I think over $1 billion. And I'll just, again, I always like to say, PA Walsh needs to get rid of those temporary portables that were temporary, but they've been there for 40 years. So I think as a parent, as a grandparent, as a taxpayer, I really get to say what the expert is going to say in a little while, and that is that there are no material deficiencies, there are no significant deficiencies. And I think that's important because that means that our staff are doing what they're supposed to do. So I'd like to personally thank Colvera Chang and Joe Andrade, Ricky Carrillo for his facilities director, and the people who really help all of us do this together. And that's Tricia Campbell, who always reminds us about our meetings and does all the things that we need to do and projecting all those projects. And Lene Bays, who lets everybody know what we're up to. So we don't do it alone. We are there to oversee everything. We don't get to pick the projects because those were identified when the bond was passed. And I think for the public, it's important to know, and other parents, it's important for them to know that the Citizens Oversight Committee doesn't get to pick what you do. All we are doing is overseeing it, but it's all of you that do your jobs that make sure that we are in compliance. And I'll let the expert, when he comes to talk about all the details, talk about his audit. But I do want to say thank you to all of you and to say thank you to Jackie, who retired, and to Penny Timbo, who retired, because they were there up through June. So thank you all, because every child deserves a great place to learn and the staff deserves a great place to work. Thank you.
Thank you, Kat, for making it really hard to follow up on that. Thank you, board members and exec team. You can go to the next slide. I don't know who's controlling the slides, but I joined the team here in late October, and it's been my great privilege to be part of this team. They've done a great job so far of managing the $198 million. I come from a district where they're currently spending that same amount on one building, and the fact that we've been able to spread this over 12 years and improve sites for students consistently is amazing. Once again, thanks to everyone, prior to me who made that happen. And now I'm tasked with spending the rest of it and hopefully passing another bond. But so far we've completed a lot of projects, or the bond has completed a lot of projects. at Britton, Burnett. You know, there's a few projects district-wide right now that we are looking at upgrading the IT infrastructure and the phone system. We go to the next slide. And we have quite a few projects coming up this summer. One of them being the Live Oak High School parking lot renovation. We're going to completely redo the student parking lot. If any of you have been out there, you know that it desperately needs it. We're also in the process of replacing several fire alarms across the district for our campuses, Martin Murphy, San Martin, Gwynn, and currently Live Oak is at the tail end of replacing their fire alarm. So we'll be happy when that's done. We're currently also getting ready to redo the Britton Middle School gym. What is it, 50 something years, right? 55 years now or so, 54 years since that gym was. Yeah. So, so maybe you can ask your husband out on a date once it's completed. So yeah, so I'm looking forward to that. I've been spending a lot of time on that with the team. And along with that, we are also going to be doing some site improvements over at Martin Murphy with their administration building or office setting. We can go to the next slide. And this just represents what categories we meet when we're spending the bond dollars as far as the bond language goes. So for example, Britton Student Union meets all the criteria that the voters approved. And yeah, any questions so far on that? No? All right, next slide. And here's just a overcap of where our money's going and how much we've spent on all of our projects so far. Next slide. And as Kat was explaining or speaking about the Office of Public School Construction, this is a new one for me. So I'm still trying to understand how it works, but it works very well because we get a lot of money back from them, which allows us to create new projects. But basically, we have to establish eligibility with them. And once we do that, you know, we apply for the funding, and if it's approved, then we move forward. If it's not approved, then we you know, we don't get the funding. But once it's approved, all the allocation gets board approved for the projects that we've identified. So next slide. And this is just some of the funding that we've received back from OPSC so far. Next slide. And I chose this picture because some of the funding that we got back is actually going towards improving Martin Murphy. So that's a big plus. Next slide. And so this is just kind of a project information summary of everything, you know, of the funds we've received. Next slide. And this is just identifying the funding that we're going to be spending on new projects. So for example, like I said, Martin Murphy, and we're also looking at a project with DA Walsh. Not removing the portables, but we're going to do something fantastic over there. So next slide. So with the savings, we've been able to identify a project at Live Oak where we're going to be replacing the stadium lights and the sound system. I mentioned the parking lot, Britton Gym, and demoing Building C. And The modernization of PA Walsh, Martin Murphy, El Toro is coming soon. Next slide. So these are some of our achievements so far to date. Security cameras have been installed at El Toro, Los Paseos, Jam, PA Walsh, Nordstrom, Barrett, and Paradise Valley. And we have a lot of deferred maintenance projects, which are important because that's how we keep the rooms nice and cool or nice and warm in the wintertime. Next slide. So our future plans, as I've mentioned, we have some fire alarm projects coming online. Adult Ed, El Toro, Los Paseos, Martin Murphy, and San Martin. And Martin Murphy will also be getting a new HVAC system this summer. And currently under construction is the HVAC at Adult Ed and the fire alarm project at Live Oak. Next slide. And this is our team. I thought it was important to highlight the team. Unfortunately, we're losing Tom this month. He's taken a job at another institution. He'll be working at De Anza on their bond program. So it's going to be a big loss for the team, but we're currently in recruitment and there's some talent that'll be coming in to hopefully fill those big shoes of Tom. And next slide. So thank you. And if there's any questions, I'm available.
Colleagues, any questions? Mr. Marquez.
Just out of curiosity, who decides on where the money is spent? I know it was mentioned that you don't, as the committee, decide. Who makes that decision?
You as the board.
Oh.
Oh, you mean the bond language?
Yes.
Oh, whoever wrote the bond back in 2012 put those criterias into the bond, and then you have to meet those criterias in order to spend the money.
Oh, so there's specific things that you use the money for.
Correct.
Understand.
If-
Okay.
I mean, break with norms and trying to provide something, having been on that committee way back when, so I've been following this for a long time. So staff develops the list of recommended projects that periodically come to the board for approval. Many of you weren't here when these various projects were approved. So what's being reported on now is stuff that's underway that was, mostly approved over the last 12 months as far as current work in progress. The bond language lays out in broad terms the kinds of things, but not the specific things. So like in the original bond language was, heating, ventilation, air conditioning, necessary plumbing and infrastructure, something like that. So the chart you're seeing when it says, okay, this project we did at this school, did it meet the criteria of the bond language? So like our existing bond language doesn't say anything about workforce housing. We just happen to have visited. There are other districts that have done things that said in their bond language, we're either going to use all or some of this for workforce housing. And in which case then this organization would have the ability to say, okay, there's this much money, there's all these needs, where are we going to allocate it? But over time, it's our job to kind of agree on the specific allocations where the bond just gives the general big picture, but we can't do anything that the bond big picture doesn't provide for. So that's why, workforce housing, that's not in the majority of school bonds out there. It's in some, it's kind of an evolving area for a lot of reasons we understand. But so if that's something we consider in a future bond and voters approve, then that would be one of the things we could do. Measure G did call out technology upgrades. That was, the folks that did that. I served on the oversight committee, but not on the board that approved that. Had the foresight at the time to say, we need to make a major investment in new technology for new generation, which is where, internet and Chromebooks and all this came in, which particularly then when we went to the everybody go home, we were a district, well, we already had one-to-one devices. We didn't have to scramble for that. So is that helpful? Just
Yes.
kind of my understanding of the history. Staff wants to add or amend or correct, please do. Okay, thank you.
But I did want to say,
One good thing also that I.
Please, Chairwoman Chavez Napoli.
I never know if I'm the chair or the president. I have it
Oh,
both
I
ways.
can't keep track.
Schizo here.
Hefe.
But one of the great things, one of the great things that also has happened because of our staff saving money on different items on the projects is that we earn interest. And that interest, we were able to really extend the money that we had because believe it or not, when the construction crews go in there and say they're going to replace a roof, they find things they didn't anticipate, like dry rot, or that they have to replace a whole bunch of the foundations. So one of the things that has really helped us is that we're not overspending on our projects because, and that's one of the things that the Oversight Committee can look at and at least feel good about and share with the community, that that interest that we're earning is not restricted to that just part. And we find unexpected additional costs, and then that interest is not restricted. So that has helped us do really a lot more than we could have been. I think we have, I'm really bad at the amounts, but millions of dollars. So that has really helped us to, for example, at Live Oak, they found some dry rot. And if Tom Harrington was here, he could tell you all those areas where we found additional damage. Kind of like when you're remodeling your house and you find out there's a dry rot, or you have to replace because it's old cast iron plumbing, you have to replace it with copper, something that you would never think of because it's covered up, and most taxpayers don't see that that's also being modernized and becoming more efficient. So that's another bonus that we get with this bond money.
And nobody cares about the sewer line till it doesn't work.
That's right.
I
Other
just want to say
questions?
thank you for your committee for putting all the time into this. It means a lot for the schools and the kids that go to those schools. So thank you.
Others? Trustee Munson, please.
I just wanted, it sounds like you guys are doing an amazing job, really trying to cut cost and not cut costs, but to save and to use the interest on different things. So I just really appreciate that you guys are doing your due diligence, and it sounds like you guys are doing a fabulous job. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, well, we appreciate all of it. Thank you.
Well said. Thank you. Anything else? Trustee Marquez? No. Oh, turning your mic off. Okay, very good. I will just add my thanks and appreciation. Appreciate it very much. Okay, there's no, I don't think we need to formally accept that report. Okay. So sticking with the Measure G theme, we have I want to make sure we have just one open position. Yes. It's unusual. Often we've had multiple open positions. So we have one open position and 4 applicants. Is that correct?
That's right.
And I'm told at least 2 of the applicants are here in the room. Is that correct? Yeah. Okay. So we will give each of you a chance to stand up and say a few words. So are you Mr. Fang in the back? Okay, Mr. Fang, if you would step up to the mic for a moment. Sorry. Did I miss something here? Oh, I'm supposed to have Assistant Superintendent Chang introduce the item. How'd I do, sir?
You did fabulous.
He's just saying that. Okay, yes. So please, Mr. Fang, we don't have a formal kind of Q&A here. You've provided some information on your application. If you could just share in your own words in a few minutes with the board, what's your interest in serving in this capacity?
So, excuse me, I've had 3 kids go through the district. I've lived in the area for, I guess that's 22 years, and I've recently retired, so I've been looking for ways to give back to the community. And so when this came up through sort of like the newsletters and things like that, I decided something that is a way for me to give back with my past experience. I've started already doing that by, I think it's in the application, a lot of it's redacted, but, teaching after-school computer science programs at Martin Murphy, expanding that to Los Paseos next fall, filling out grant applications for Murphy to get them to build out a computer lab for them. We just had our grand opening 2 weeks ago for that. And so anyways, that's what I'm looking for, why I'm wanting to see what else I can contribute. I don't have a lot of experience, if you will, this, but my past experience, I was vice president of engineering. I've been an executive for almost a decade, managed budgets in terms of tech startups, if you will, where we have tight money, not much, and you find very creative ways to get things done, right? So I had my largest managing a budget of about $11 million, managed teams, directly and indirectly, up to like 300 people when I was working at Juniper Networks. And so a lot of just experience dealing with large, complicated projects, organizing them and putting them together and trying to figure out how to best get them done. Obviously, that's not what this job is, but I think that experience helps me take a look at it, see if, are we spending the money we're supposed to spend, right? In terms of like, are we following the bond rules, if you will, as well as, making sure that whatever you all decide, this is where you want the money to spend on. Are we being as efficient as we can? Because just reality is, those millions sound like a lot, but they're really not.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Mr. Fang? Okay, I don't have questions either. This statement, we'll see how this goes tonight, but thank you for everything you're doing with students. We'll see if this becomes an additional one of your roles, but really appreciate your commitment to our students and schools. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we have Mr. Benavides.
Well, who wouldn't want to join this team with Kathy Napoli being the leader? 12 years ago, when this bond measure passed, I remember we were looking at what were the needs of the community of the different schools, and we're looking at getting phones for students because we had cards that were shared with classrooms. Not every classroom had them, and it was such a hassle because you couldn't really use them, because teachers would have to charge them up and then move it around. The other thing we're looking at what smart magic boards for all the students so that they could work and get the classroom. Basically, the technology was so important. And it was great to see after the bond measure passed that every kid got to use a Chromebook. Every classroom had magic boards, which was great for teachers in the technology. And so over the years, and then I remember also after, for the first 6 years after 2012, there was just so much activity with planning for buildings. I mean, the staff time really took almost like 80% of the time. Every time we came to board meetings, it was just talking about constructions. What's the next project? How are we going to spend all that money? And it was just so fantastic to see it. So we're down to the last millions that we have. And I know that the state is now contributing more money to us. I'm glad. I'm looking like if we spend $2 million on PA Walsh, we'll get $6 million. I mean, that would be a fantastic investment for PA Walsh. So I have a lot of experience. I know the duties and responsibilities of the Bond Oversight Committee. I know that my responsibility is to make sure that the money spent as the voters approved it. I mean, we do have this column that states all the reasons how where the money was going to be spent. The voters expect that we're going to spend it as it was promised to the voters, and that is my job. My job would be to look at making sure that when you decide how you're going to spend the money, that it falls into those classifications. When the money is spent, that it does spend on what you said you want it to be spent. So I look forward to working with the team and being a leader. The other thing is, the other responsibility for the board for the oversight is basically being a public voice to the voters, saying how the money's spent. And I know I have a lot of community engagement. I speak to the Latino community, which is a big part of our community. And certainly I'll be able to tell them about how wonderful our district is spending our money and building up these beautiful schools. Braden Middle School is a beautiful, beautiful campus now as a result of the bond measure. But there's also a lot of other buildings. I mean, we have the charter school has a beautiful building there. The Murphy campus got a lot of new buildings too. So I hope that I'm able to serve in this committee and continue the good progress that the bond measure has been used for. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Benavides. Any questions for Mr. Benavides? Seeing none, I'll again say thank you for your long history of service to students in the community, and we'll see if this is an additional capacity, but know that both you and Mr. Fang are people that care a lot about kids in the community, and thank you for stepping up in this way. I believe we have Mr. Walia available. Do we have Zoom working? Okay, let's see. This is a big moment for our tech support team.
Hello, can you hear me?
Can you get sight and sound of Mr. Walia on our screen?
Hello, can you hear me?
Just heard a train in the background.
There's no train, but I'm talking. Are you able to hear me? Hello? Hello?
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can't believe how excited we are to hear you. I mean, it's not only you, but anybody. It's been quite a night for our technology, but it's really great to hear you. So, yes, Mr. Walia, thank you for your interest, and you have a few minutes to just in your own words tell the board why you're interested in serving on the Citizens Oversight Committee.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate everyone who is here today in terms of the everything that I've seen and all the work that's being done. I really don't have too much to say. I'm part of the board of directors of a nonprofit for the Santa Clara County Realtors Association. So I'm able to like look at things in terms of the short term and long term perspective of the financials and other aspects, and able to assist in that sense. And in terms of my work, I'm a community lending officer, so I focus on a lot of financial literacy and financial education throughout Santa Clara County, and I partner with a lot of organizations. I don't want to get too far into myself, but um, it, I have two boys who are 2 and 6, both in the Morgan Hill Community School. So one goes to Jackson Academy and one goes to Stratford now. Um, and so it's something where I'm invested in the long term growth of the school district, and I'm happy to answer any questions. I guess I don't want to take up too much of your time. I just appreciate all the work being done and happy to do my part.
Thank you very much. Yes, and do we have any questions for Mr. Walia? Okay, seeing none, again, I'll say thank you very much for your commitment to students in the community. We have an embarrassment of riches in this case. So, tonight we can only pick one person to serve in this role, but for everyone, I encourage you to continue, finding your way to make a difference for kids and community and school. I know that all of you are the kind of people that will do that. So this is just, one role and one decision that we have to make here tonight, but it's delighted to have, like I said, an embarrassment of riches of really wonderful applicants. We had a fourth applicant provide paperwork, but I understand is not available on Zoom or in person. Okay, so so now I don't know if trustees you want to. I mean, probably the the way we generally have done this sort of thing, unless you want to have any conversation first, is to start by on your top little slip of paper, checking off, your choice, all things considered, for filling this role, and then we'll pass it back to staff. We'll read off the roll. If we're at 4 or more for one name, then we'll take a motion and complete. If we don't have a majority, supporting one name, we'll have some dialogue and see where it goes from there. Is that clear? Okay, just want to make sure. And yeah, Trustee Gardner left. She said she wasn't feeling well from radiation from the cameras or something. But so there's only 6 of us here, but still it takes a vote of 4. Even if only 4 of us are here, it still takes a vote of 4. That's how this particular process in law works. Fill out your round 1 card, please. Okay, we have 6. We have 5? 6, okay, so in no particular order, if you just read the trustee name and how they voted, and we'll take the tally.
Trustee Munson, Lee Fang. Trustee Marquez, Armando Benavides. Trustee Horner, Armando Benavides. Trustee Altman, Lee Fang. Trustee Northrop Gaddis, Armando Benavides. Trustee Andrade, Lee Fang.
Wow. There we go, a tie. So now we open. So now, yeah, this is unusual, but quite possible. So now open for discussion. If anyone would like to, say anything about, why they prefer a particular candidate. And again, to both of our finalists, thank you. You're awesome people doing great stuff. So I know right now it feels, like there's winning and losing, but you're both big winners for us. So anyone like to make an initial comment? And any input our student board member would like to have? You want to jump into the fray? You could be the decider. You could say, Trustee Munson, yeah.
I mean, are we just gonna vote again if we're not having a discussion? Yeah.
Well, no, well, I mean, we have to have, so unless somebody wants to, I mean, you might say, you know what, I've thought about it and I want to change my vote, or we need to have some discussion, say, and I will try to moderate the discussion, not drive it. So please, Trustee Munson.
Well, I'll go ahead and start it. And
Yeah,
yes,
make your case.
Not to try to make a case. I'm just kind of supporting my
Yeah,
vote.
Why, how you see.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. Because I think everybody is qualified. I mean, I think
Yes.
everybody would do, a great job. They have experience. I know just Mr. Bang and his ability to give back to the community. He has started a computer lab, right? Applied for grants. He volunteers in the district. So it's not just, he's not observing from the outside, he's actually getting in there and doing. He's experienced with large projects. And then, he represents a different community that we haven't really seen on the board or speaking at the board meetings. But he just and he has children that have gone through Morgan Hill, or are they still in Morgan Hill? In the district?
2 are still
Yeah.
graduating.
Yeah, so he's just very hands-on, involved, and I just was really impressed about writing the grant and getting the computer lab. Like, that's pretty impressive. So why I voted.
Strong argument. Anyone else care to say anything? Well, I will step into the breach then. When I think of the many kinds of folks we have in our community that we serve, we have our kind of third largest demographic is a community of Asian descent. And we don't have much representation in that regard. So, given the where we are and the conversation, I'll make a motion, which is essentially changing my vote to approve Mr. Fang for this role in the name of, continuing to diversify the voices and experiences that serve. So we'll see if we have a second on that or not, and then we'll vote.
Second.
Okay, a second from Trustee Altman. Student board member, would you like to weigh in on this, or would you like to stay out of it? Yeah, you're going to have a long and successful political career. So all in favor in the motion on the table, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed or abstaining? Seeing none, we, the 6 of us present, unanimously appoint Mr. Fang to this role, again with our thanks, and our thanks to all the applicants for the continued support of our students. Okay. You want to take a stretch break or just carry on? Where folks, a little bit of a stretch and bio break. Okay. 5 minute stretch and bio break. Yeah, thank you. Sonia Bennett. Ms. Bennett? We have our timer working, or we just have to use the phone here?
We're gonna use the phone.
Okay.
Hello.
1 second, thank you.
Not a problem.
Ready?
Yes.
Okay, please proceed. Thank you for being here.
I am gonna try to hold it together this very day. Apologize if I don't. Good afternoon, Sonia Bennett, mom of two, Paradise Elementary, which I absolutely love. Call me crazy or committed. I'm here today, even though I'm broken inside with the recent loss in my family. I'm here for our community, the students, the teachers, and employees of Morgan Hill Unified, to raise awareness. I love our district, our school, the employees of Morgan Hill Unified. I'm a product of Morgan Hill Unified myself, graduate from the Live Oak High. In items 4, 5, and 6, there's over 130 pages of information for the financials, including the audit reports, which the district paid about $40,000 to a third-party auditor. In addition, the district paid about $40,000 for a consulting team for the Budget Advisory Committee in 2024. I am disappointed that the budget narratives are missing and the formats have changed in the budget presentations. The narratives were very helpful in the past for those that do not have full financial backgrounds. I myself haven't had the time to go through all of the material this cycle. I haven't had the time to process properly, but have noted several concerns when I read significant risks in the East Bailey reports. I urge the board, please, to ask the hard questions that need to be asked and answered. I urge the board to ask for additional time to read, process, and ask the questions to better understand the material presented. Decisions for the budget cuts shouldn't be made lightly, shouldn't be taken lightly. The decisions to be made will change the course of direction of programs at the school sites and district office that will affect every student. Let's take the time to do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, Assistant Superintendent Chang will introduce this item.
Thank you, President Horner. At this point, I'd like to welcome and introduce Mr. Ahmad Garabi. He's from A.D. Billy, who's our audit firm, and tonight he's going to be presenting the 23-24 audit report. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe this is just a district, and then after that would be the bonds.
Right, yeah, two separate items.
Thank you for having me. This is the annual financial report for the district. We are the independent auditors for the Morgan Hill Unified School District, and the scope of the audit is to ensure that the financial statements are fairly stated. Process begins at the beginning of the year. Split the audit into multiple phases. We go out to your sites and do attendance testing and student body testing, come in during the interim phase, sometime in April or May. We take a look at the manner that you process receipts, the manner that you process disbursements, the manner that you process payroll. We look for internal controls and review policies. And during that phase as well, we take a look at your federal and state compliance, and then we wait for management to close the books. I believe they present to you the financial information in the form of unaudited actuals. And we come in after the fact. It's just a confirmation process. That's really what it is. We confirm the amounts that are reported on the financial statements with your creditors, with your bankers, with the state with respect to revenues. We perform various procedures with respect to your expenses, ensuring that the amounts that were previously presented to you by management are in fact fairly stated. And then along with that, within the scope of the audit, you receive federal funding. And so that requires what they call a single audit or federal compliance audit. And we perform testing related to that. State compliance is another area that we look at. And then at the conclusion of the audit, we are required to report to you whether we noted any difficulties in the audit. Management has been very forthcoming, giving us the information that we needed. They connected us with your creditors, with your bankers, with the county, with the state, and what have you. So please to let you know that we issued a clean opinion on these financial statements. They are fairly stated in our opinion. And with respect to some of these comments in relation to the significant risk, so you have a couple of letters in there that describes what we did, which is what I just did right now, and how we perform our audit. And we are required to let you know that we are independent of the district. And we are required to let you know whether we noted any deficiencies in the internal controls, which we have not. And then with respect to significant risk, this is just a standard language in which we communicate to the governing board. High-risk areas that based on our determination, it's high risk, not specific to the districts, it's just basically specific to the industry. And that's what that language that you see there in that letter means. We did have a couple of findings related to the state compliance, and I believe Colvera had been following up with the state to ensure that it has no financial ramifications on the district. So likely it will be noted as implemented in the upcoming year's audit. And with that, I'll be more than happy to take any questions.
The phrase I always look for is clean audit report. So I heard that one. Any questions, colleagues? Questions or comments? Trustee Altman? Are you?
I'll let someone else go first.
Okay. Did anyone else? I didn't see anybody else kind of grabbing the mic or please, Trustee Altman.
I have a couple questions. One question is, this year, we've changed auditing practice, our accounting practices for special ed, making it, netting it out rather than reporting the totals. Is that, what do you typically see in school districts? Is there a preferred way? Does that matter?
The specifics to special education, when you say netting it out, are we netting the revenues with the expenses, or I'm not exactly sure what the treatment is?
Yes, this is related to the revenues and expenditures that are incurred by the county program. And so the county collects property tax and also calculates apportionment for school districts. And then they factor in the cost for school districts to serve the district students. And so typically from where I've been and what I'm used to is that when the county does a calculation, they net the two together. So there's a reduced entry.
Yeah, and so either of the two processes are acceptable. Netting the revenues against the expenses or grossing the two up with and reporting them on the financial statements is an acceptable practice.
IRS gets mad at me when I do that. But thank you for that. On the comparative condensed statement of changes in net position, sorry, I'm not an accountant here, so I'm pretty confused. Where we have a change in net position that's negative 45%. It's page 12 of the report, I believe. Yeah, page 12 of the report. And the verbiage on top of this before it comes to it says that the net position increased and charges for services decreased. And so I'm really confused. How come the net changes? Am I reading that negative wrong?
Well, the negative is you had an increase in 23 and an increase in 24, but the increase in 24 was lesser than the increase in 23. So at the end of the day, there's still an increase, but the increase is not as high as it used to be in 23. And that's because there were quite a bit of some COVID money probably coming through in the
so just the
previous
one-time
years.
funding.
Yes.
And then on page 85, where I think you might have been referring to this. It's funny, what I'm looking at on one side is different with the, it's school accountability report card. Is this where you're talking about some things that Colvera would be looking into?
Yes, so there's a couple of findings in there. This, what particular one does not have any financial ramifications. It's just, it's a requirement that you report to the public, complaints that came through on facilities. And I think we noted that an exception in there in which something was reported on the quarterly reports, but it was not reported on the card itself, the SARC itself.
Okay, thank you.
So I believe this was, if I stated it correctly, this was corrected in the subsequent year.
This was due to the FIT report?
Yes.
Yes.
Did that conclude your question, Trustee Altman? Very good. Anyone else? Okay. So, questions being complete, do we have a motion to approve the 2023-2024 financial report? Thank you, Vice President Andrade. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Trustee Marquez. Student Board Member Faruqi? Aye. Other trustees, if you agree, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed or abstaining? So that passes by the 6 members present. Very good. Don't go far. And now, live from Morgan Hill, it's the 2023-2024 Annual Measure G Financial Report and Performance Report.
And so this is also an audit of financial statements. Call it performance audit, but it's really a compliance audit. A first set, which is ensuring that really the district segregated the funds of Measure G from the standard general fund money, the other funds money. And so it is a process. Again, we confirm the amounts that are reported on these financial statements. We confirm your bond proceeds when they come through. We confirm your interest with the county controller. We confirm your cash, very similar to the districts. But again, the objective is to ensure the segregation between the district funds and the bond funds. And so that's the first component of that audit. The second component of the audit is to ensure that the expenses that were charged to the measure are in compliance with what the voters had voted on, the ballot language. And so we pick a representative sample of these expenses. We sit with your project managers, ensuring that these expenses are really construction related, they're in compliance with the ballot language. And I'm pleased to let you know that both opinions are clean opinions, meaning that the financial statements for the bond funds are fairly stated, and we noted no non-compliance with respect to the chargeability of the expenses to the bond measure.
Thank you again. My favorite phrase, clean opinion. Any questions on this item? Seeing no questions or comments, do we have a motion to approve?
I move that we approve the Measure G financial report.
Thank you, Trustee Altman. Do we have a second? I heard a couple.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Trustee Munson, for the second. Student Board Member Faruqi? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed or abstaining? Seeing none, that passes unanimously by the 6 members present.
Thank you.
Moving right along, thank you very much. Item 6, a budget update. Ms. Cruz, still available too? Okay, so before we start this item, we will go back to Roya Cruz for a public comment, which relevant to this item, and I believe Ms. Cruz is on Zoom. Let's see how this goes.
Can you hear me? Hello?
Can't-
Can you hear me? Oh. Can anyone hear me? Oh. Hello, hello?
There we go. There we go. Okay, thank you very much. Okay.
Yay, third time's the charm.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for your patience. We in Zoom and all the technology gremlins appreciate it. So you have 3 minutes. Please go.
Okay, thank you. So hi, I'm Roya Cruz. I'm a fourth grade teacher at Nordstrom. I've had the pleasure of having many of you in my classroom. The last time I spoke at a school board meeting, it was actually about Nordstrom needing an assistant principal because our current principal, Brianna Cole, is amazing. She supports our students and staff, and we didn't want her to burn out by doing the work of supporting all the students and all the staff. And with the budget cuts in mind, I think we all can agree that we don't want the budget cuts to hurt students as much as possible. We want to keep those away. And for Nordstrom, cutting our assistant principal would be really close. I know there's 4 management positions on the line, and I really strongly think and have some reasons for why a Nordstrom's assistant principal should not be one of those positions. So Nordstrom is the 4th largest school in our school district. It's the largest elementary school by almost 200 students. It is the only school that runs TK through 5 inclusion, and that just requires more support. It's a wonderful program. We've had great success. It needs more support. We have nearly 65 staff at our school, certificated and classified, who need evaluations. And so that's why we cannot have just one principal. It's would burn out any sane person. And I think too, size alone does not warrant necessarily an assistant principal position. Our administration together, AP and principal, have been so effective together. With our presentation to the board last month, I think you were able to see Nordstrom's had incredible growth with our students, with all of our initiatives. And our administration has really helped empower our staff to really help our students. We're able to catch kids early and help them grow so that they don't get classified as special education. And financially for our budget, this is really important because that kind of saves our district some money. So before we had an AP, we had about 14% of our population identified as special education. Now with our AP, we're down to about 9%, and that was after adding inclusion. So we should actually have a higher percentage. And every kid that is identified as special education, our district has to supplement some money because I think there's a funding issue with that. So we're saving money that way. I know that also in San Jose, schools that have over 400 students roughly generally have assistant principals to support. Although it's not the case for Gilroy. I know Gilroy does not have assistant principals. I think that's something that the board's been thinking about. One thing I will say is that Las Animas is a school that's in Gilroy. It's over 700 kids, so it's a little more than Nordstrom, but pretty close. They do not have an AP, but they do have almost triple the support staff. So looking at their website earlier today, they have 35 support staff versus Nordstrom's 13. So they're more able to help support students and staff. While Nordstrom has only 7 paraprofessionals, they have 20. While we have 3 yard duties, they have 10. While we have 3 office staff, they have 5. So we really want to make sure, again, Nordstrom's been making really good growth. So students are growing, staff feel supported. I know that in my 8 years of teaching that I feel incredibly supported. My students are doing better than ever. So I just wanted to say, please, please, please. I know we have to cut money, but I think that this is a really important position for our students and for our staff. So thank you.
Thank you for sharing your perspective. Appreciate it. Okay. Assistant Superintendent Chang, please.
Thank you, President Horner. So tonight, I want to preface this presentation by saying that the fiscal staff is working on second interim report right now, and that will be brought to the board on March 4th, and that will provide a greater details in terms of where we're at with our budget and multi-year projection. But for the objective for tonight is really to give the board. Next slide, please.
To build your own presentation.
We're helping you out for next month's board meeting. We're gonna build it for you. Sorry.
Thank you. Again, so staff is working on the second interim and will be brought to the board in March. So the objectives for tonight is really to give the board a high-level overview of where we're at, incorporating some highlights from the governor's budget proposal that was made available in January. Also going back and revisiting the fiscal stabilization plan that the board approved in December. You may recall that in December, when the board approved this plan, it was not incorporated into our first interim because board has not taken action on yet. So we're going to show you what that looks like in the multi-year projection, factoring all some of these new information that we received. Next slide, please. Okay, I'll start with some of the highlights from the governor's budget proposal. The first one is the COLA, the cost of living adjustment. So you'll see here that for this year, the COLA remains the same at 1.0%. For next year, there's actually a reduction in COLA to the tune of about 0.5%. And then in year 26-27, it's projected to increase from 3.08 to 3.52. Next. Thank you. The next item is in the LCFF formula, there's a line item when Universal TK got implemented a few years ago. The state built in just a line item for TK add-on. This is to accommodate the increase of cost in terms of adding or reducing class size ratio. And so currently, starting in year 25-26, the current TK add-on rate is $3,152 per ADA. Currently, in January, when the governor came out with the proposal, that amount essentially a little more than doubled, from $3,152 to $6,404 per ADA. The caveat is that it's still a proposal at this point. The state has a long way to determine whether that's going to materialize or not. But we wanted to give the board the most updated information and what could be and what could not be. So, we still have May revise to come, and then the budget gets enacted by the state sometime in June. And by that time, we should know for sure where we land on that. Next. One other highlights is we're getting another one-time money. This one is called the One-Time Student Support and Professional Development Discretionary Block Grant. We have to year 28-29 to spend this fund. Right now, it's estimated that this grant will provide approximately $323 per ADA, and for Morgan Hill, it's about $2.3 million. Again, it's one-time money, and we have until year 28-29 to spend those funds. The next item is the Learning Recovery Block Grant. This is not new. This has been in place for a few years now. The reason why the state is providing or proposing to provide this fund is that in recent years, when the state had its own budget challenges, this is one of the programs that it cut. So now they're replenishing some of those funds back. The plan is to replenish it over a few years, but we can only count on this one right now. And again, everything here is in the proposed state. Next item, please. Okay, so in the previous slide, I talked about the COLA and the TK add-on rate. That has an impact on LCFF dollars. Starting with the current year, no changes. The COLA remains the same. Our projected ADA remains the same, so the LCFF entitlement does not change. Moving into fiscal year 25-26, this version shows you what the LCFF formula or entitlement would come out just based on the revised COLA from 2.93 to 2.43. And using also the current TK add-on, which is the lower rate. And so in this instance, we actually see LCFF dollars decreasing from what we presented from first interim, mainly because of the decrease in COLA. Okay, and then when you move over to 26-27, even though the COLA went up, because the COLA will be decreasing next year, there's a compounding effect. And so in year 26-27, it's almost like a wash. Even with the COLA increasing in that year, you're seeing about a $59,000 decrease in LCFF dollars. Next slide, please. So this version of LCFF factors in, again, 24-25 remains the same. 25-26, with the revised COLA and the proposed TK add-on rate, which is the 6,404. You see that on the bottom line is that the total LCFF entitlement actually went up by $357,000. So that's about $820,000 swing from the previous slide to this slide. And then moving on to year 26-27, again, using the proposed TK add-on rate, you see that the bottom line is that LCFF entitlement increased by about $794,000. Okay, next slide. So this is the fiscal stabilization plan that the board approved back in December. I won't go through the line items, but some of these will be shown when we're presenting the different versions of the multi-year projection later in the presentation itself. Okay, next slide. So in order for us to provide an update, we were using the first interim report as the baseline, and then incorporating some of the items from the governor's budget proposal, and also factoring in the fiscal stabilization plan that the board approved. So this is a snapshot of what was presented in December and what the board approved. Here, I just want to point your attention to the bottom line, which is the percentage of reserve. At first interim for year 24-25 in the unrestricted general fund, we were projected to end this year with about 24% in reserve, and then moving to 25-26, about 14.4, and then 3.9 in year 26-27. Next slide. So this first version of the multi-year projection, to the left of this gray line right here is the unrestricted general fund, and to the right of it is the restricted general fund. So here, what we incorporated is, first of all, the changes in LCFF entitlement. This number is based on the lower or the current TK add-on rate. And so we updated this number for year 25-26 and 26-27. These line items represent the items that was approved in the fiscal stabilization plan. And then one new thing that we added was the one-time money. And so naturally, one-time funds are coded with a restricted resource. So we have to book the revenue in the restricted general fund. And so what we can do then is that we can move expenditures from the unrestricted general fund to the restricted general fund to spend down those funds. So this is the first version. And again, pointing to your attention to the reserve level, this year didn't change. Next year, we're projected to be about 18%. And then in year 26-27, a little over 9%. Next slide. And so the second version of this multi-year projection, everything stays the same except for LCFF entitlement. Here, we're updating the LCFF entitlement using the proposed TK add-on rate for next year and year 26-27. And everything else stays status quo from the previous slide. And with that, this year's remain the same with the projected ending fund reserve of 24.33. Next year, we're projecting the reserve level to be about 18.66. And then in year 26-27, the projected reserve to be a little over 10%. With that, that concludes the update. I'd be happy to take any questions that the board might have.
I have one, and then I'm sure others do. The increase in TK funding from the state, I think, also corresponds to an increase or change of the ratio to 1 adult per 10 students. So does that have an effect on our planned expenses, and have you incorporated that, or were we already planning that in the expenses?
Uh, Well, that 10%, that 10-to-1 ratio has been in statute. And so, we have been planning for that, looking at enrollment at the TK level. So, obviously we're going to continue to monitor all the TK populations just to make sure that we're accounted for that.
Okay, very good.
Yeah.
So we were already planning on the
Yes.
staffing
Yes.
at the 10 students to 1 adult ratio, and the state is at least preliminarily proposing actually paying for that, which they weren't before. Is
That's
that
correct.
correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. Anyone else? Trustee Altman or Munson or? Y'all have to be really explicit with me that you want to talk. Please, Trustee Altman.
So I just want to make sure I'm understanding this correctly. When we implement the fiscal stability plan in 25-26, our reserves are going to drop to 18%. The following year, are there any cuts in there beyond that, or is that just carrying on without any more cuts that the reserves would drop below 10?
Currently, we are only factoring what the board has approved so far. I mean, as as a team, we're continuing to look at areas where we can save. That's going to be an ongoing work because we're still, looking at a structural deficit. So that's always going to be on our mind going forward and the work that we do.
Okay, yeah, we had, I thought we had requested to look out, 4 or 5 years before the new board was seated. John, you were here, Pamela's
Can
gone.
you help? I didn't exactly follow the question. I'm just being a little
That
dense.
we had requested when we get updates to have the projections go out. It was either 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, I think I believe that's the plan with the interim you're going to present in March. Is that correct? Second interim in March? Yeah, to look at a 4-year window, not a 3-year window. We have talked about that at a few times.
We can absolutely do that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. With in the auditor's report, when it was talking about the educator effectiveness grant, has that been removed from this budget?
Removed. What do you mean by removed?
We've already spent the money on the
Yeah.
educator effectiveness, so you want to talk about how the
Y-
status of the money that remains from educator effectiveness?
Yes, we still have a little bit of the educator effectiveness. The finding itself is not going to result any fiscal impact. We did confirm that with the state already. Just trying to get, ahead of what the recourse might be. And so we have some correspondence from the state, and we have in writing that there's no, we actually, going back, it wasn't supposed to be an audit finding. We actually met the requirement because the statute says that, if we were to submit a report prior to September 30th, 2023, then we would have been in compliant. We actually submitted a report back in September 2022. Due to the transition of all the staffing, we could not locate that report, but in our conversation with the state, they were able to produce that report for us. And so we did share that with our auditors, and, as far as we're concerned, that issue has been resolved.
And in terms, and this is also for President Horner, did the governor's budget presentation come out before or after the fires? The way the climate is now, I mean, the political climate and all, I'm really concerned about if the federal government is going to be as fiscally supportive of California, and if the wildfires are going to possibly be causing a revision of the update.
Yeah, it's a great, I'll answer from what I've heard. So the governor's January proposal was, before the bulk of the fires and before we saw the flood of executive orders out of DC. I think of the two things that you're referring to. At the Capital Advisors Workshop, that was one of the questions, because the people that, that do that work in Sacramento are very attuned, they have coffee with people from the Department of Finance and go to meetings, and it's interesting hearing from them because they're more in the, and some of the folks in the audience asked the question, how do the LA fires in particular likely affect school budgets? And this was a matter of, their informed opinion at the time. They were not expecting that to have a significant impact on the governor and the legislature. Very much want to protect some of the work they've done around TK and student meals and supporting mental health, and very, very much in a kind of protect the legacy mode around that. There was a new school bond approved by the voters in November, and there may be some appetite to kind of alter the criteria for who gets that money when, particularly in light of the fires. So there might be, I don't think that affects the previous presentation we saw on, some state money coming to backfill money we've spent out of the OPSC. That's really state bond money coming back to help us. So I don't think it will affect what we've already kind of feel we have sort of in the bag in that regard. But going forward, they said, of all those state bonds, there's a process and a priority and a procedure. Currently, what they shared was that might change, but these change can change too. So it's certainly an area to be concerned, and we don't know what's, we're not primarily dependent on federal funding here, but it certainly is significant, and nobody really knows what is or isn't going to happen with that. I will say that, as much as there may be, a desire by some to, maybe punish California special education and all the other various kinds of funding, they affect every county and every state, no matter their political leanings. So we shall see. That's what I've heard, but none of this is official or final. Is that what you were hoping to hear from me about? Okay, thank you. I feel like I'm interfering with staff reports. My apology. Other questions or comments? Trustee Munson, please.
All right, thank you so much. Is there any way to put the slide 7 back on? And just, I think Trustee Altman kind of alluded to some of this too. So I appreciate that. We'll wait till it's up. So anyway, thank you for the presentation. And then Trustee Altman did say, to look at those projections in year like 4 and 5, and you said you're going to provide that. So thank you so much, because that's one of my concerns. If we're looking at slide 7, 7 and 8, either way, if you look at our revenue and expenditures, we're spending more than we're taking in. And it's obvious that we're going to be having to make some really hard decisions. And I know that we're all aware of that, right? But I just wanted to kind of point that out as taking from our reserves is not going to solve the problem. And I know we approved taking the reserves, but you see it goes from 24 to, I don't know if that's slide 7, but this one says 18 and then 9. And then it's just gonna keep going down, right? So that's why I wanted to go second, because I'm not trying. She said a little more eloquently than I did, but I just wanted to be aware that it's not getting better, that we need to have those cuts and we need to do it. And I don't know where the cuts are going to come from, but we can't continue to be on this trajectory and think that everything's going to be okay. So I just wanted to kind of point that out. You notice -9 million, and then we're going to be under 10 million and then 12 million. It's only increasing, right? Even with our taking of our reserves and all of that. So anyway, that's just wanted to put it out there. We're going to have to make some hard decisions. Better to do it now than later. And I appreciate you doing the year 4 and 5 so that we can see that, right? How we're going if nothing's happening. So thank you.
Thank you. Fair point. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, this isn't an action item. We will have action items on the budget next meeting, but thank you very much. Okay, so now we're coming to the end here. New business future agenda items. Trustee Altman.
As I drive around town and I'm looking at all of the construction, and I'm wondering what the impact is, where the kids are going. And at some point, we need to look at boundaries. So I'm not sure if you have a demographer's report coming up again, but I'd be really curious to know where the students are going as these housing units are filled, and at what point do we need to take action here? And make it on my last year, because it's not a good topic, but I'm willing to take it on.
Going to nominate you to chair the committee.
I love
yeah,
being
so-
hated. Yeah, let's go.
No good deed and all that. Perhaps staff can help me. I know we normally have an annual demographer's report looking at all this. Is that currently scheduled to help
Yes,
me
so
understand?
this
when-
is already scheduled for a board retreat, and it's the second meeting in March.
Okay, so we do have a demographer's
Mhm.
report in planned for, when you say board retreat or a study session?
Sorry, the study session.
Okay,
Yes,
oh boy, we're retreating twice.
study session. Apologies.
Yeah, we might be yeah, yeah. Okay, so thank you for that. And so I understand that will be part of our second meeting in March, which will be a study session, including a demographer. And I don't know if we currently have an open future agenda item regarding looking at boundaries. I think we have one about looking at tweaking boundaries. This is an evergreen thing, but I mean, it is something we need to look at. Do we have other future agenda item requests?
Can you clarify when you say boundaries?
Yeah, so trustee Marquez, what about boundaries? So this is attendance boundaries. Every school has, on the map, say if you live here, your primary attendance area is there, and that hasn't been adjusted in Morgan Hill in a very long time. And as trustee Altman's point is, as there's housing growth and as populations age and shift, where the kids are moves. So, periodically a school district needs to look at that. And it's often a very hot topic because people feel like when they bought a home or rented, they also bought, the rights to go somewhere. So that's not actually how it is, but that's what folks assume, that it like goes on the deed. My kids go here, and that's not how it is. So it often becomes quite contentious, but there are ways to do it that are more or less contentious. Having long, thoughtful, community involved conversations is very important. And
What's referred to as school boundaries.
yeah, school boundaries, yeah, school attendance boundaries. Okay. Not trustee, not who votes for you. Yeah, not who votes for who, for which seat. Any other items? I'd like to put one on really as we continue looking at the budget, and trustee Munson's point is well taken. I really would like to engage professionals to give us options around a parcel tax. There's two pieces of that, what's allowed, but, so I don't know how much money we might reasonably raise with the parcel tax, but I'm thinking when you look at a few years out from now, we may need to go to the voters and say, look, there's $10 million per year, whatever, of structural deficit. I don't know if a parcel tax can fill that in. I don't know the numbers, but at some point we may need to go to the voters and say, look, we've cut. We've had people looking at cuts. But we've done some things, but basically, y'all have to choose. Do you want to pony up X $100 more per property, or X cents per cubic yard, or, whatever the different ways are? But I really think we're at a time we're well away from, more than a year away from anything being on any ballots. The next opportunity won't be till March of 2026, right? But I really think we need to start doing that analysis and having those conversations so we're well informed to go to the voters with options. Because that's the one thing we can do that can raise significant amounts of cash to pay people to serve our kids. There are other things we can do that are smaller, but the only way to get to 10 million, probably a parcel tax. So I guess we should say, you know, are there at least 4 of us that want to start analyzing that before giving staff direction? Please, Trustee Altman.
Thank you. I would like to, if we're looking towards a parcel tax, since to my knowledge, we've never even tried for one.
Right.
And there's reasons behind it. I would love to, if staff or maybe a board committee could start looking into the history of it. Parcel taxes are, I think, usually a lot more challenging than bonds to get passed. And so I would like,
Yeah.
before we spend any money, that we talk to the people who've been down this path in the past and just seeing what their rationale was for not going for the parcel tax. Because you had said engage professionals, and I don't even want to put any money into this until we do that lit review, if you will,
Okay, I'll amend my request to start having the detailed conversations with.
which need to happen quickly though,
Yes, yes.
because
And I, you
time
know, I
would
will
be
say
of the
from
essence.
talking to colleagues throughout the county, many districts, you know, in just in the last year, quite successful, both in high wealth and not high wealth areas of passing parcel taxes. So we also want to look at what has worked or hasn't worked in other communities, and not just, you know, because Morgan Hill, the voters of Morgan Hill today are different from 20 years ago. But yeah,
Can I add something?
please.
I just want to add this commentary for clarification, because the previous public comment with regards to the budget was about, you know, comparing schools, right? Gilroy has this, San Jose has this. We are not funded like San Jose. There is about a $10,000 difference per student from San Jose Unified, Eastside. So I think we need to, we're not basic aid. So we kind of also need to communicate that out when we're talking about how come this school district has this, we don't have those property tax revenues. That's why Gilroy is in the same situation in terms of their ADA and per pupil spending. So that's all I wanted to say, because I know there are people viewing at home, and I don't think that they know the ins and outs of, you know, not everybody knows that there's funding differences and funding disparities depending on your school district. Your zip code is going to determine a lot of things.
So I guess, do we have any opposition amongst the board to looking seriously at a parcel tax, however that may be? Okay, so just before giving, staff direction, we want to have some clarity around that. Is that good, Superintendent?
I'm unclear with the process. Somebody mentioned the board subcommittee. Are you directing staff to lead the work, or are you going to be assembling a subcommittee to do staff's work? That's I
So
would like some.
my preference would be to start with some staff conversations, you know, and come back, you know, see what advice you want to get from, you know, internal experts, community, and maybe come back to us with, okay, you know, here's what we need from you as electeds to move forward with this. Is that okay? So at this point, it's some staff work, but probably won't end there. Is that fair? Any other future agenda items? Okay, seeing none, move on to LI, approve recommendation for readmission of student R24/25-006. We had the discussion and detail of this in closed session. Of course, those discussions are confidential. But do we have a motion to approve the staff recommendation?
So moved.
Sorry, I didn't hear.
So moved.
Thank you. First by Trustee Munson, a second by Trustee Marquez. Our student board member does not participate in this. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed or abstaining? Seeing none, that passes unanimously by the 6 members present. And we're now on item M. I'm going to go back to longstanding former practice, which changed a while ago. We don't actually need to vote on adjourning the meeting. That's actually a responsibility of the presiding officer, which is me, the board president. So this meeting is adjourned. Sorry? Yeah. No, it's just, I think it was Dr. Rosales Montes went to a conference and got that idea and changed what we did, but the paperwork was never changed. So I'm just going back to the old practice.
Are we going to be having a budget meeting?
Sorry? No.
do we need? Because I know I'm on the committee. Okay, you were,